School robs children of hope on bogus grounds. Think of hope as the boundary phenomenon separating free men and women from drones, the hopeful from the hopeless. My insurance lady and I got to talking about schools once, and she revealed to me that her son, a senior in a fancy public school in a suburb much like Columbine, told her that he didn't want to go back his senior year. "I don't want to go," he said. "They make me feel like an idiot, an idiot." That's how the shooters at Columbine were made, because they were made to feel like idiots too. Those boys had everything the rules said made for a good life. Wealthy parents, beautiful homes, every toy they wanted, respectable parents, plenty of pocket money, intelligence, health, agreeable appearance. What they didn't have was hope. School was a minefield in which they were humiliated daily, and they said that often. They said that for several years before they went to the guns. In that dramatic arena of relationships we call school, the least important thing is the zone of ideas and morality. Warehouse schools like Columbine, now they would be appalled to hear me call them warehouse schools, because they have every amenity that money can buy. Warehouse schools like Columbine or PS 87 are lively theaters of psychodrama. I'm only picking on PS 87 because it's considered the elite of the elite on the elite West Side, and I happen to know PS 87 inside out. I worked across the street from it for 20 years. Warehouse schools like Columbine are lively theaters of psychodrama, and the dirty secret of these places is that their adult managers cannot succeed unless they stay on the good side of the right student leaders. Sometimes that's because the kid has a lot of prestige among contemporaries. Sometimes that's because the kid has clout through his or her parents. A typical guidance counselor responds to student complaints of harassment by asking, "What are you doing to make them dislike you?" Now imagine saying that to a Jew at Dachau, and you'll know how the victims feel in the West Side public schools and all over this nation. What are you doing to make them dislike you? The principal at Columbine appeared on CNN after the massacre and said that a snitch program would have prevented the bloodshed. A snitch program promises to give the growing up time of rich kids some of the flavor of life in a penal colony. I've never heard of a private school worth its salt that wouldn't turn on the snitcher if he or she pressed their tails too vigorously. At the very least, snitchers are shunned everywhere in polite society. Snitching at Columbine joins the already familiar package there of tracking kids as bright or dumb, standardization rituals, constant browbeating and bribes. It should settle once and for all the question of what separates public school from private. It's a matter of trust, an outlook on human nature, a different take on the purpose of going to school. Hope is the boundary phenomenon. If the best a boy or girl can hope for is to fit in to a fairly rigid pyramid of predetermined opportunity created by officials and social engineers, then the promise of America that we wouldn't be like the traps of England, Germany, France, or Asian countries is just silliness. If we are just parts of an enormous social machine, if system is dominant and not individuality, we should expect more Columbines as a penalty for revoking the American Charter so profoundly. All the money in the world couldn't buy Klebold and Harris and education. At 17, they reached the end of the line. That's why they killed themselves. Other teenagers kill themselves to get out of the trap too. What the newspapers didn't bother to tell you is that Littleton, Colorado, an executive suburb, has been a national leader in teenage suicide for at least 30 years. And the American nation wears the same crown in world society. And poor kids don't commit suicide. That's a disease of comfortable families. Klebold and Harris committed suicide besides murdering some others. What you want to keep in mind when you think about teenage suicide is that it isn't at all a disease of ghettos, but pretty much a habit of prosperous kids who seem to catch on to school lies faster than the poor ones do. Public consideration of a snitch program at Columbine tells you all you need to know about the desperate status of public schooling in America. I can't even conceive of a good private school doing such a thing. The degraded view of human nature it suggests is terrifying. I cannot imagine a single homeschool in America teaching its children that brothers and sisters should snitch on one another. It's the moral numbness behind the pragmatism that shocks me. The menace of a police state where every neighbor spies on their fellows and authorities paw over the intimate details of one's life is much more horrifying to me than any school massacre I can think of.